and then just like
Okay.
here's my conversation with Matt, and then we just kind of go into it. I'll take the floor, I guess. uh, anyways, so I would say the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I'm somewhat lost in what I want to do and what's really out there in the world. And I think that the more podcasts I do, the more expansion I can have into the world and hopefully value I can bring to others. Because something I've been meditating on lately is how I can best serve humanity. And I think, I mean, podcast, there's so many people on it, so it's a great platform to reach people and hopefully make a difference.
Hmm.
And like give people things they can actually use to like action steps, because
Hmm.
there's so much like inspiration stuff out there that it's like almost like worthless. It's like take action. Anyways,
Right.
that's kind of here.
There's just such a high supply, the demand's lowered, and it's not like as valuable.
I didn't even think of it like that, honestly. I was just thinking like most people like when they get inspired for like 5 minutes, and
Oh,
then like
okay.
it's like how much value can you really provide over a podcast? Like if the person's gonna do it, they have to basically do it on their own will. Like what can I really say? So I want to actually
Hmm.
provide an action step that they could potentially use.
That's fair. The reason why I am doing the podcast is I think it's like a hack. Number one, I get to have good conversations with you, Brett. So yay for both of us, I
Cheers. Yeah,
guess.
it's a nice way to
um,
catch up for.
Good way to catch up. But then also, if you build a brand on a podcast, I see this as such a hack that you can have these one-on-one conversations or groups of 2 to 3 with people who have done, significant things. So you can have that time. Now, it's a win-win, in my opinion, at least, because I get to learn. That's my selfish goal. But my selfless goal might be that I can post it online. Other people can take the teachings and take from it whatever they might.
Mm,
And like you said, I like a lot getting practical. Just because it's practical, right? Like, I don't know. Practical
yeah,
just seems like a good thing.
fair enough. Cool.
Do you want to
So
get into your?
yeah,
Go ahead.
I have a good question I'd like to ask you.
Uh-huh.
So for those of you that might be listening that don't know a whole lot about Matt, he's like crazy learner, like
Right.
probably
Thank you.
the one of the persons that or one of the people that I've learned the most from, especially skills involving uh, prudence. I would say just a lot of like cleanliness skills, like little things like that. Anyways, so
Thank you, Brett.
yeah, the whole point is that he's a crazy big learner, and he's been learning lately a lot from Gary Vaynerchuk, and I'm sure he's mentioned that before in his podcast. And so I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to ask him a question about Gary because I've followed some of his content too, and he was actually the first person that inspired me way back when in my self-development days to actually get started and do something. And so he'll always be my OG, like my number one. And
Mm-hmm.
so and yeah, he just spits absolute fire. So Matt, my question for you is, what have you learned from Gary that has helped you figure out what you want to do, and how could other people also use that? Because most people are kind of lost, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
how could we be happier? How could we?
So I just want to preface this with the fact that I don't necessarily know what I want to do, like my
Gotcha.
purpose. You know what I mean. A lot of people
I
get
see.
kind of hung up on that, but I
Yeah.
also don't think you need to get very hung up on that at the same time. Reason being, Gary V, one of the things he's taught me is that number one, don't do shit you don't want to do. So if you're working a job, for example, and you don't want to work that job, you're probably not in a good system, right? That's a system that isn't working with you on some level. Now, just because it's not working with you on some level doesn't mean you have to cut it off right away, but you want to move out of there. So, what do you do with that? One thing Gary's taught me is tasting. He has a good metaphor. If you want to know how a cherry tastes, you got to taste the fucking cherry. You can't keep, cannot keep asking people, what's the cherry taste? Oh, it's sweet. Oh, it's this and that. No, well, you have to taste it to see if you're going to like it. All right.
Right.
Same idea applies to any sort of activity in life. So you want to know if you enjoy snowboarding. You want to know if you enjoy like learning about XYZ topic. You should probably go into it and taste it. Try it out. Now, one thing I will note here, there's a delicate balance you have to play where you can taste too many different things at too much and then not really get the full taste for it. But maybe you need a more to try more different things at a much shallower level across. It's a
That,
big
that
game of self-awareness, right?
yeah, self-awareness is yeah. I feel like that's basically what it comes down to because like the cherry might taste sweet to me but sour to you, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. But what I wanted to mention was I find that is a really delicate balance too. Is how long do you taste something for? I think that's somewhat of a tough question because I definitely found living with the monks after 3 days, I felt like, wow, like I know so like this is great. Like I got the experience. This is totally fine. But the actual juice was in the last like 3/4 of the
Mm,
experience, and
ooh.
it was powerful because I thought I had got the juice because
Mhm.
but the last 3/4, that's where the real magic happened. So I don't know, but one powerful experience I'd like to draw from that is that the first 3 days were the most difficult, and maybe that's why I was kind of wanting. I was like, okay, I think I'm good. Like I want to leave. I was kind of getting scared. So I think that maybe it's. I want to get your opinion. If you think it's after the scary part, after like that uphill climb, because then you have a chance to continue to taste whatever you're tasting after the toughest part, so you can see what it's like when it's easier. Does that make sense to you?
Um, just to reiterate back to you, make sure I understand. Then, like,
Please.
basically, like after the hard part, that's when the real taste comes in, type thing.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's
Um,
exactly what I said. And I was thinking that because you can do it at a point where it's I feel like you can almost explore it more when you're not so worried and like it's and scared and I feel like you're more level-headed and you can take in the experience more. That's what I would yes.
uh, honestly, I don't really know, but it seems if it makes sense, right? Like if you don't give it enough of a chance, like there's likely going to be something that you missed out on.
Mm.
I know Gary Vee says try things at 6 month intervals.
Yeah, he does say that. That seems so long to me, but I'm like I feel like I just not be patient enough, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
you can also know right away. This reminds me of something back when I used to do Facebook ads. They would say you have to wait 3 days for Facebook to optimize the ad. But at the same time, a lot of people would say you can kind of tell. Like at the beginning, just do 3 days and don't fucking like look at it. Like you're not allowed to change your Facebook ad for 3 days.
Yeah.
But the guys that were pros, they also said I myself, if I'm a pro, I can tell, sometimes after a day or two, just at the beginning. But until you get to that level, wait that 3 days.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I think it just a lot of it just comes down to self awareness.
Self-awareness. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like Gary's like number one thing is basically just self-awareness.
step one
Yeah.
of 67 steps from Ty Lopez:
Is it?
awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So basically, I just want to make sure I can get your answer for people listening. So how like basically when we do what we want, when we do what we like, we're just happier people. And to do what we want, we taste and we don't quit our job as an example right away. We make sure that it works for us. We're self-aware. We make sure that it's a good decision, and we just work hard to do what we love, and that will make us happy.
Well, maybe like again, it's just like all self awareness. I don't know. For me, that seems to be like a winning formula. But for somebody else, like their winning formula might be to have like a shitty job and then watch Netflix from 12 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Gotcha.
Although I question that, but it could. I really don't know. It's. I think a lot of it comes down to self awareness, like really, really much. And
Yeah.
and then that's another thing from managing oneself. One of the points
Mhm.
Peter Drucker makes, he says that you have to realize that you are your own person and everybody else is their own person, so that you kind of have that kind of separation there, and
I like that.
you don't push your ideologies on other people because you got to again realize everybody's different. Self-awareness is so key. So there's so many different things you can take from that. But
Yeah.
what would you say
So
about Gary Vee?
I'll mention that in a second. While you mentioned Peter Drucker, um, something else he mentioned is that we 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 think we know like what we're good at, but we actually don't. So like
Mm.
going to self-awareness, like it's almost like, do I even know myself? Like what am I even good at? So anyways, a practical tip from Peter Drucker, he would say, write down what you expect to happen in 9 months, and then in 9 months, see if what you expect to happen, and like you can kind of tell from there what you're good at, what you're bad at. So if that's something you could try is write down your goal for 9 months and write down what you expect to happen, and then see from there. What do I think of Gary Vee? Is that your question? What do I think of him, or what did I take from him?
Uh, just kind of like you asked me what have my big takeaways been for happiness and kind of leading me what to do. Have you taken anything from him?
Yeah, for me, my biggest thing is not caring what people think because
That's
I definitely was a sufferer of that, and I still am to a certain extent. I do feel like I'm making progress on that, thankfully, but I don't think it's like, boo, I no longer care what people think, and I think I almost used to think that that's what it was. In fact, when I first started listening to Gary, I almost like convinced myself that I didn't care. And then upon reflection, a couple months later, I was like, okay, yeah, I was still kind of insecure, still
Mm-hmm.
kind of cared.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my number one thing is from Gary is just don't care what other people think. And then the more soul searching I do into this topic, it's like there's like literally no rational reason to care what somebody else that you don't know thinks of you. So it makes no
No.
sense. And it's like this whole, and Gary says like it just holds people back. And it makes sense because like think about for you, Matt, you've been putting out a ton of content lately. But
Ooh.
yeah, but if you cared what people thought of you, you may not do that. I've been in a position where I held back on putting out content because I've cared what people thought of me. And so I definitely know what that's like. So yeah, I was using you as an example because I would imagine there's so many people that want to put out more. Even Gary, always interviews people, and he's like post 3 times a day. They're like, what, 3 times? I don't
Yeah.
know. Where like people gonna like that? Like, I think it's like Macho Man Savage. I would love to, But anyways, yeah, not caring what people think. Just like I think it's like the best advice because then we live freely, and to me that's just beautiful. If we can just live freely, like, free choice, just choose what we want to do and do it. Freedom makes
Yeah,
happiness.
it's. I think that might go to ego too. Like, I don't know what. Like, why do you care about what somebody like says about you? Like, your ego gets hurt a little bit, and then
Yeah.
eliminating the ego is a great thing. Being present. And I found the biggest thing that helped with me is just kind of knowing. I honestly cared a lot about what people would think about me from posting. But obviously, you see, I'm posting a lot, so there's some sort of change to happen along the way.
Yes.
The biggest kind of catalyst that allowed me to realize was just having conscious awareness of it. Like, why? Just thinking, okay, why am I not? Why am I like not posting? And I'm like, oh my god, I just care what people think. Okay, well, what I think? Like, wait, there's nothing. There's nothing there. You remove the curtain. There's nothing behind the curtain. Like, oh, okay, we can just post. Like, honestly,
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. So,
although it's not perfect
just
still, but yeah.
of course, yeah, yeah. So, how many whys did you have to ask yourself? Like, you're like, okay, well, why aren't I posting? Well, how many whys did you have to ask yourself? I'm curious.
I don't know, but like I try to I think asking why like constantly is probably like a good idea.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember a post you made about it might have been Seneca or Socrates. He like went and talked to a villager. He kept asking like,
Mm-hmm.
why, and like, why do you want to get this job? Well, I just want to make money. Well, why do you want to make money? He kept going back and back and back until eventually he said, well, because I want to get to the truth or the real truth or something along those lines. And I was just thinking like, wow, I don't think I've ever gone that deep on myself of why I've done something. And
Can I
Socrates,
talk now though?
yeah, please. You probably yeah, please.
I got it from John Vervaeke. I actually had him on the podcast. And it's the Socratic dialogue, basically, where you ask questions. Socrates would have these dialogues with people, and he would just ask them questions to have them come to the realizations themselves. Now, he would go into the market and say, okay, why are you in the market? And they'd say, okay, they get my food. And then, why are you getting food? Because I'm hungry. Why are you getting food to fill? Like, okay, well, why are you hungry? Because I didn't eat a lot. Okay, this is like not the right way. So why do you get the food to fill that need? Because it would make me happy. Why will it make you happy? Because it will fill that desire. Okay, does filling desires always lead to happiness? Well, no. So it must be something else that is filling. What is it? And you see how we're going deeper and deeper down the
Yes.
rabbit hole.
Yes.
Applying that same, you can apply that principle to yourself. You can ask yourself questions. Just very easy, right? It's not very. It's not like it's free. I don't know. It's not like very difficult. Ask yourself why. That's a really easy one. And just keep diving deeper. Because if you don't, okay, what's the consequence if you don't ask yourself why? And this is also what John Vervaeke talked about, is we're constantly being pulled by different forces. That I don't know how you can argue that. You're doing something because of something else. You're doing something for a reason, right? You
Okay.
don't really do things without reasons, do you? Can you think of one thing in your life you did without any reason?
No,
Right?
no, no.
If you really, so what are those reasons? If you don't know those reasons, you're going to be pulled by things outside of your awareness. Now, we're going to go another step. There's something that is human has a nature. Humans have nature. Like a dog has a nature. A dog likes dog treats. A dog likes to sniff his like butt or whatever. Humans have nature. Humans are social. Humans, they have consistent logical biases. Humans have self-serving bias. You don't know what's pulling your biases. There are salient things. There are things that are compelling that are pulling you. But if you don't know what is compelling in your life and it's pulling you, you're going to be, like the puppet. Somebody's going to be controlling you. So that's advertisers trying to sell you things. That's people with any sort of intentions outside of your own. You might have heard the quote, either you build your own dream or you help somebody else build their own. I think there's a little bit of truth to that. So if you don't realize what's pulling you, you're going to be pulled by something, but you just don't know what. And I don't know very many people who would say they want to be in a state where they don't know what they're being pulled by. And again, it goes all the way back to, you got to have self-awareness. What are you pulled by naturally? Are you aware of what's going on? Step 1, 67 steps. Key.
Okay, thank you for that. So are all humans pulled by generally the same things, or is it being self-aware enough to know what specifically compels me as a person, and then going through the dialogue that Socrates did at the market, and ask myself, well, why do I want to do this, and why am I compelled for this desire? So am I asking myself that questions about why I'm compelled to do certain things? Is that a step I could take?
So there's two parts to that. Are all humans compelled by the same things? And then what was the second part? Like, should you be compelled by certain things?
Should I ask myself why am I compelled by certain things?
Should you ask yourself why you're being compelled by certain things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So the first part, humans, they are and they aren't all compelled by the same things, because naturally, me and you, we have different things. We have different desires. We have different likes. So clearly, there's some sort of difference going on there. But at the same time, we have very consistent biases. If you look at studies, there's a study that says, they asked a bunch of high school students, are you a good leader? Rate yourself from 1 to 10 on the leadership scale. There should be at least half the people below 5 and half the people above 5 if you want to have like a natural distribution, which that's how people actually fall in. But what happens is most people rate themselves 8 out of 10 or above. So there's a self-serving bias here that's consistent among humans. I think asking yourself, why am I doing these things, can at least bring some light into your own life, right? I just think it helps you bring awareness to it. And then there's 3 steps to learning. Is something like you're unconsciously unconscious, right? So you don't even know what the fuck you don't know. You're consciously unconscious. Now you're bringing the light to it. You know what you don't know. And then you become consciously conscious. You kind of start implementing, and then you can go one step further, actually be like unconsciously conscious, where it's second nature. But yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So it's like unknown unknowns, known unknowns, then known knowns. I think I've just heard it a different way, maybe. Just want to make sure that I got
same idea.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So that was a good transition, actually, to the next question I wanted to ask you, which is about psychological biases. So I think you did a great job of explaining my first question, which was, what are psychological biases? Now the second question, or two-part question, why is knowing them beneficial? I would assume your answer would be something along the lines of, well, self-awareness, and then just knowing what's happening to you and anything subconscious. And then what are some simple takeaways someone could use to instantly start implementing this idea?
I love that second question. To answer the first question, I'm going to give you a psychological model you can use out of it, and I'm going to invert the question. So your question is, why is knowing the psychological biases good? Is knowing the psychological biases good? Well, let's invert that. Would not knowing the psychological biases seem good? If you didn't know what your own psychological biases were, is there any way you could make that seem good? Right? And that, for me, is a great way just to figure out different questions. So inverting first thing. To answer the question, again, like you said, awareness. If you don't know you don't know yourself. Literally, the Bible says, know thyself. Self-awareness is like it's a repeated pattern over and over. If you don't bring conscious awareness to it, it's just going to happen, whether or not you know about it. Now, what you don't manage, or what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. So you got to measure it. So you got to see what's happening, and then you can manage it. That's why I really think it's so important to know your psychological biases. And just knowing them isn't enough. How you can actually, what are some practical ways you can take away from this? So I guess knowing them, just a few of them. You probably think you're better than you actually are. That's just very simple. Commitment consistency bias. I see this one a lot. Just taking the action of doing something makes you more likely to do it again. For example, telling a lie. This is why lying, in my opinion, is even the small ones, again, there's a bunch of reasons, but this is one reason why you shouldn't do it. Is a quote, the chains of habits are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. That really illustrates commitment consistency bias. You do it once, no big deal, but you're more likely to do it again, and you can go down that rabbit hole. There's studies, and I think it was the Korean War. I'm not sure what war it was exactly, but the Chinese would take American soldiers prisoner and have them write essays about why communism was good. Why, the Chinese, they were smart. They making the Americans write down thoughts that they didn't believe, but through the simple act of writing out these thoughts that they didn't believe, and then they would play them back through the camp so everybody could hear them and have a little bit of social proof bias there too. People would have to commit to what they wrote. They're from the United States. They believe in democracy, but through this process, they're like brainwashing them or changing their thoughts into believing communism. Now, again, if you don't know about this bias happening, it's just like a slow transition. You don't even realize it, and boom, you're done. So knowing about it and then taking active steps to be conscious of it, I think is a very, very key thing. So go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, well, one of my favorite people to learn from, Eckhart Tolle, he says, just being aware of your thoughts, of your ego, you're 50% there. So I think that's a great piece of advice. One thing I want to ask you about with the commitment consistency bias. So the more when we do an action, we're more likely to do it again. Now you brought up a couple actions that implied maybe a negative habit for a person. Would that work for a positive habit like exercising at the gym?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can use it to your advantage too. So there's downward spirals and there's also positive ones.
All right, I'm all about the positive spiral. Tell me a little, tell me a little bit about that.
Whatever habit you want to build, it would seem that just taking one. Okay, let me rephrase this. One tip that I've learned is, if let's say you want to build the habit of taking a cold shower. Okay, this is something that I think is somewhat common, maybe not that common, and just thinking of the fact of getting in a shower and turning it ice cold, that's like hell. And then like, let alone turning it on, but then washing myself in it, that's like even like hell times two. Instead of thinking of it like that, why don't you think, okay, well, how about I can turn the shower cold for 1 second? Most people, I think, would agree that if you say, can you get in a cold shower for 1 second? At the end of your shower, turn it cold for 1 second, scream for like a second, and turn it off. Like, holy frick, like never again. But like, you did it for a second. Do it for a second. You're commitment, because you're building up the pain tolerance too, so that you can continue to do it. Can I add another thing there too?
Please.
Side tangent. Another great psychological tip to know is something called keystone habits. This is something I learned in the book called The Power of Habit. So first, we got to recognize that largely our actions, everything we do throughout the day, is based on habits. Maybe, I don't know what the exact number is, maybe 60-70% of everything you do, it's just like a habit. You don't even think of it. You just went to your shower, you cleaned yourself, you went here or there, and you reacted in this way out of habit. Keystone habits are habits that are basically like the foundation on which other habits sit on top of. So a good example of keystone habits would be, and I'll go with a negative one first and we'll go to positive after, would be watching TV. If you build a keystone habit of watching TV, you're more likely to build the habit of being a little bit more lazy. I'm more likely to build the habit of eating a little bit more unhealthy, being a little bit more inactive. You see how that one habit can build a bunch on top of it?
Yes.
Well, luckily, we can use it to our advantage too. There's a bunch of examples: meditation, cold showers, working out. These are a few different keystone habits. Think of it. Generally, people who work out have other habits that sit on top of it. If you take the time to work out, you might take the time to cultivate the habit of eating well, of being more mindful of your body, and then you might go into your mental health. Reading is another keystone habit. I don't know, and again, some keystone habits might not be keystone habits for somebody else. Keep in mind self-awareness, and just Google them. I don't know them all.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Keystone habits. I really like that. The foundation breeds other positive or negative habits or habits related to that habit, without putting a label on it. Yeah, That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Can I ask you questions?
Please.
I'm going to add a third one at you because I really want to know.
Okay.
I'll just ask you because you're doing the 30 days of reading challenge, and I love that.
Thank you.
So I guess like my question is, how has it changed your mindset? But before we get into why are you doing it in the first place? Because I'd like to like tell people, why is this worth a damn? Why is it worth reading?
Oh, well, because and I haven't read too many books in my life, but what I find is that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And so for me, it's more of a game of getting less ignorant than learning more. So I
Mm-hmm.
think why it's worth a damn is because I don't want to be ignorant and I want
Mm-hmm.
to be able to like handle myself in the world, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And I didn't really have the habit of reading a book a day. Like I've never
Mm-hmm.
read a book a day in my life. I've maybe, I had a fine habit of maybe half a book a day. So I
Mm-hmm.
figured like 30 days straight, like just do it. Like honestly, maybe this goes to like caring what people think, but I'm big into social accountability. Like if I tell the world on social media that I'm reading a book every day for 30 days, I'm gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was yeah, a completely selfish challenge, I would say. But it's been kind of cool, honestly, just being able to like I've gotten a lot of people reaching out to me like asking about book recommendations and
Oh,
a
cool.
bunch of things like that. So I find like that's another cool aspect. It's connected me with a few people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, why it's worth a damn is just to become less ignorant and like just like I feel like I can just handle myself better in the world.
But why books? Can't I just learn it all from trial and error?
All from trial. Well, Matt, books are written by people. I'll use the example of Deepak Chopra. He's like 74 years old. He spent, 50 years learning things that I'm interested in. And so he could save me like 50 years of time just by reading a book by him. However, I will say, so like number one, yeah, just like saves so much time. Trial and error is probably necessary too, like actually experiencing the things that you read. I'd actually like to get your opinion on that, Matt. Once you read something from a book, how fast are you to apply it? And do you apply most things that you read that you're interested in?
This is very interesting. There's a few things I want to touch on here then.
Please.
So, first, a quote by Warren Buffett. It's true, we only learn from mistakes, but they don't have to be yours. So that's the first reason why reading is so important. When I say, I asked you a question pretty much in a joking manner, I guess. Can't we learn from trial and error? Yes and no. I mean, exactly what you said. You're going to cut your learning curve literally by 50 years or whatever by learning from guys that are 74 years old. Another quote that relates to this by Alec Noon. The reason why I stand so tall is because I stand on the shoulders of giants. Another common knowledge quote that everybody knows: "Don't reinvent the wheel. Just learn use what's already right in front of you." Literally. Um, Now, what was the other? What were we talking about exactly?
It was how fast how fast are you to apply what you've learned? So
Mm,
you said you can learn from other people's mistakes, but and then so the question is, Kate, so would you apply something that you learned and not just read it?
right. I think that a lot of that just comes into action. I don't know what it is because literally all you have to do to apply it is just do it. Like what's standing in between there? What's that gap that's stopping you from applying it? Do you think? I don't know.
I've been there multiple times where I've read something, thought it was interesting, felt motivated, and then didn't apply it. So let me try and think here. I think what Tony Robbins would say actually is that there's just a lack of meaning behind it.
Hmm.
Like if you read something, like you just don't have enough meaning to actually apply it. Like for any motivation, really. Like
I
for
mean,
the
that's true. Yeah.
like if you want to go to the gym, it's like whatever. Like oh, working out sucks. That's your mindset behind it. You don't have enough meaning. You're not going to go to the gym. If you read something and it really empowers you and it like hits you in your soul and it provides you a lot of meaning, then you're probably going to get up and do it. You know. And it's weird. I found that like most times when I read something, I'll instantly know like in my head like I'll be like yep applying it and I in my heart or I don't know I instantly think I know exactly when and where or like some idea of when I'm going to apply it and I also know when I'm bullshitting myself. You know,
Oh,
like
dude.
like if I read something and I say like, "Okay, like I'm gonna apply," like I've literally written on my calendar before, like time blocking for the next day. And I remember this is maybe like 8 months ago. I wrote something, maybe even less than that, like 4 months ago during Fluent, I think. I wrote something down, and I was like, "Wow, I'm writing this down, and there's no way I actually don't plan on doing it tomorrow." It was so weird. It was like this is just complete like bullshitting myself. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I
That's
think like
so
right away,
interesting.
like but now I'm self-aware enough to know like right away if I mean it or not. So and then if I
Mm,
don't mean it, I can be like, then I actually take the time to step back and okay, well, I don't mean it. Is it worth it to put some meaning behind it? And then because I think it's pretty easy to put meaning behind something, like even like yeah, like cleaning the dishes can be enjoyable and we can be motivated to do that if we want to, like
mhm.
meaning behind anything.
So how do we put that meaning behind it?
I think that might go a little bit deeper. Like, why do you get out of bed in the morning? I think most questions for motivation, because I've heard a quote, I think it was by Dean Graziosi, but probably millions of other people. How we do one thing is how we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so I think how to put the meaning behind it, it has to go to our purpose because I think that just drives everything else, like our values. How do we put meaning behind it? I don't think that's a question I can answer, to be honest, but that's the best I can do, I think.
Well, I'll give you a question that you might be able to answer. How do you not put meaning behind everything? What would lead you to not have meaning behind what you want to do or any action? Let's invert. I think this is
Yeah, yeah.
I could start it even. Doing
Please,
stuff you
yeah.
don't want to do. Just living based on other people's desires. Doing other people's biddings when you don't want to do it. Not saying what you actually want to do. These are all great ways to lead to, doing shit you don't want to do. I think fear of judgment. I got lucky, man. I don't know what it was, but fear of judgment, man. That was that one catalyst. I swear to God, that one catalyst has taken me. You know how you get a little like a paradigm shift or a whole perspective shift in your world. I had one when I read How to Win Friends. I had one when I read How to Think and Grow Rich. Fear of judgment was another one. That one just took me that next level up. And I think personally, and there's probably a bunch of different reasons why you might not want to do something. Fear of judgment, living other people's lives through your own is something that's so like it's profound. I don't know a better word for it. It's something that it should be examined. You should examine that in your life. What level are you living to fear of judgment? Now, did you think of anything while I said that?
No, you went yeah, you went quite a bit more specific than I was thinking of. I want to repeat something you said that I think was powerful. Living other people's lives as if it's your own.
Oh,
That's just absolute cash. That's the one that yeah, I want people to like think about that for a second here. Because basically what you're doing, if you're not living your own life. That's intense. But to put meaning behind this, honestly, I probably have to learn from Tony Robbins a little bit more. But like, okay, how about I think of a scenario and maybe this will spur something on. So let's just use exercise as an example. It's an easy example. I was at a point in my life where I didn't enjoy going to the gym. Now I look forward to it. So what changed there? What was the meaning behind that? Well, maybe it was like the commitment consistency bias. I started doing it, and then I was more likely to do it again, and then I started to enjoy it. But why did I start to enjoy it? Because I felt better, and I wanted to continue feeling better and feel progress. So maybe meaning is a feeling of pushing us in the right direction, is progress. So if something, like to put meaning behind it is because we want to feel like we're progressing. We all want progress going forward. So some way that doing that task, understanding that this task will give me that feeling of progress.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best I could do right now.
I think one thing that came from you told me this, was Tony Robbins said, fulfillment comes from progress towards a goal. And that is so true. If you're not, so I think that relates to flow. And you know about flow, I think,
Not
maybe
really.
even better than I. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Barrett was expert at flow.
Oh no, I watched like maybe 4 videos on it.
Okay. I honestly only know from a little bit from what like psychologists have talked on YouTube too, but basically it's like that sense of where you lose yourself almost. I talked to John Vervaeke about it actually.
Oh
And I
really?
think you'll like this. John Vervaeke had this was one of my main takeaways from John Vervaeke. We have 3 selves. We have our biography self, that's like your history, what led up to you being this moment. Then you have your kind of conscious self where your awareness of what's going on. And then you have your dynamic self that's kind of like changing with whatever's happening at every moment. And John said, when we're in a state of flow, we lose that autobiography self, that self of the past, where it's kind of like, I don't even know what to call, like your identity type stuff.
Yes.
A lot of people probably experience it. If you play sports, sports is such a good example because I think a lot of people have experienced it, where they're in a deep state of flow, where you're in the game, like you're playing soccer, you're playing basketball, you're running, you're not really thinking, you know where you have to be, and you're running, you're shooting the hoop, you're kicking the ball, you're playing defense, and you're hyper focused.
Yes.
There's so much. I don't know much about flow. Jordan
Well,
Peterson says it's like the the line you walk between chaos and order.
Yes. I'm
Go
so
on it. Go.
thank you. I'm so glad you brought up the Tao. So out of all the spiritual books I've read, they all continue to mention speed and stillness. And so the speed is like something dynamic, challenging in the present, but you still have that stillness, that non-attachment, so to speak, where you lose that autobiographical self, which I think is what John Baraki was talking about. Anyways, and so I wanted to bring up the word speed and stillness. If any of you guys listening have gotten into a meditation before where you get almost like your body gets really tired, you get very relaxed. I know that what Deepak Chopra talks about is when you get in this state of when your brainwaves start to slow down and you get in this state of complete relaxation, but not so much that you lose complete awareness. And so he talked about speed and stillness in the sense that when we do something that's a little bit more challenging than our status quo, and we become our senses become heightened, we can get into the state of flow, which is speed and stillness.
Mm-hmm.
Speed in the foreground, stillness in the background. He says.
Speed in the foreground, stillness in the background.
Yes.
What does that mean? Can you elaborate a little bit?
I don't think I can, honestly. I can, but the for me trying to implement this in my own work, I would say that what I would do is I would meditate, or at least come to a point where I'm very in tune with my body, like very focused on my breath and very aware of my surroundings, and then go into a challenging task, only focusing on that task, and then I've had a couple moments where I've experienced feelings I've never had before, and it was just some other focus and um where I lost track of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, something you said maybe a few minutes ago, I wrote it down here. I just want to jump back to psychological biases because you brought up
Please.
another great practical one that I think a lot of people could get a use out of. And when I say it, you're gonna already know it. And it's the power of incentives. And this is like literally it's the most fundamental bias in your mind. Literally think of it. You go towards pleasure and you go away from pain. This is what Sigmund Freud said. And you already intuitively know this. You know, you don't want to do anything that hurts you. But one thing I will note here, I read Poor Charlie's Almanac, and Charlie Munger, he's a billionaire. He said he thinks that he's within the top 5% of people that understand the incentive bias. And he said that he finds himself constantly still underestimating its power. So keep that in mind when I tell you, incentives, like keep it in
Wow.
mind. This guy said he's underestimating it. You and me, I feel this too. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. But really, you probably don't. And, that's just one way to illustrate that point, really, I guess. So, and let's go into it. What is incentives? Incentives is literally like, what's the word for this? What is that person? What is each stakeholder in the situation out for? What is their motive? You know what I mean? That is such a very key psychological bias to keep in mind. A great framework to have. Oh man, I just hit another gem. What, do you have something to say?
No, I want to keep listening to you talk about this.
Okay, let's step away from psychological biases for a second, and we'll go into something. This is literally, if you read Poor Charlie's Almanac, there's maybe 10 gold nuggets. Okay, here's one of them. You need to develop a framework of a bunch of different mental models for how to deal with the world. You already use mental models. Just think of this. What is a mental model? It's a system that you've created in your mind to deal with problems. Here's a mental model. You're hungry and you see food, you eat it. That's a model you use. Do you know of any others that you use? If you don't, that might be a problem. Charlie Munger recommends taking all the best ones from a broad range of disciplines and applying a whole bunch on every single problem. He says, yeah, it's hard. He says you need to learn 90. He says you need to learn a lot. But that's the price you pay. What else are you going to do? Is really the question that you would ask yourself. So developing these mental models is something that I think a lot of people should cultivate. Okay, how do you develop these mental models? What are these mental models? That's something you should Google. Okay, you should honestly, like, it's just like stupid not to. That's a mental model you should have. You don't know a question, Google it. That's a great model to use. I'll give you a couple and a couple domains to look into. Psychology. You should know the psychological biases. If you don't know the psychological biases, you don't know yourself. By definition, what is psychology? How you think. If you don't know psychology, you don't know how you think. Lack of self-awareness. You're probably not going to be that, you're not going to hit that next level. Another great one, physics. Physics is literally the most fundamental thing in life. I should go further. Math. Math is more fundamental. There might be even more. Logic might be more fundamental. I honestly don't know. That was a kind of a risky statement to make. I shouldn't have said that. But you understand, though, it's probably more fundamental than some other things.
Okay, keep going.
A few mental models you can take from math. I already used a couple, or logic that me and Brett already used. Invert. You want to know the answer to something? Invert it and use that mental model to find the other side. Another mental model. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. How does that mental model apply to life? Well, in physics, it applies to the forces. You put 30 newtons down, 30 newtons pushes back up from the ground. Well, for every action, you want to have a successful business. What actions produce that reaction? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. Now, whether or not they're equal and opposite, how do you even measure that? But it's a good model to think with. If I'm nice, likely people will be nice back. Karma is another good model to use too. It's just very practical. Whether or not it's like true or like wishy-washy, I'm not getting into that, but it's very practical.
Yeah, good call. So you think that? So I want to, because I feel like there's someone listening that's like, okay, like this sounds good, like thinking about a mental model. I can see how that can help me navigate the world. But Matt, do you really expect me to go learn about physics right now, or to go learn about math? Like I have so much other stuff to worry about. Like I'm in school right now learning about this. It's nowhere near in the realm of physics. Like I have so much other stuff to do. Like I want to read self-help books. Like I'm kind of just getting started. Is physics the to start with, or is that more something once you get into reading a little bit and you learn a little bit more about the world?
I don't know, but you're probably gonna have to learn about it eventually. Honestly, I would say just start with what you're curious about. At least that way you have some sort of desire.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about that?
I don't know. I haven't looked into any math, physics, or largely the psychological biases. And so I was just wondering about that. I could see how it could be helpful. In fact, I've been reading mostly spiritual books, but Deepak Chopra mentions physics quite a bit and how it's very, very related.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's something that's piqued my curiosity. I was asking more like when I first started reading self-development books, physics literally never crossed my mind. In fact, I was so naive that I think I thought about like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I probably won't need math and physics ever in my life because I was like, what would I even need it for? So I think it almost might be a lack of knowing what someone would need it for. So maybe now hearing you bring this perspective of mental models and knowing physics and how it's so fundamental may spur that curiosity as it just did for me.
One thing I would add on there too, just to make like something very practical for people, because I love practicality. Guys, literally just fucking Google it. Like you don't even have to learn physics that much. You can literally just Google what are the main like takeaways from physics, and dude, like I'm amazed by what Google has to offer. And Gary, again, this is from Gary. Google literally, you can Google anything. Like there's not a there's maybe a couple, but 99.999% of your problems that you think of, you can Google. Why are we not Googling it? I don't know why. Maybe it's just not natural. But
I want to add something in here that might be beneficial. When we hear something like learn about physics, and that's such a big statement, it seems we tend to make small things super big in our heads. And I'm so guilty of this myself, but um like hearing something like, hey, like learning about physics, or even just Googling something, it's like, oh, like even like we don't even necessarily think like, hey, all you have to do is actually just pull out your phone and just type in a few words and click a button. Like it's pretty easy when you think about it. But we never even like it's almost just like, it just sounds too big when you
right.
small things so big. So like one of the if we take away something from this podcast, I mean, I think just starting to Google things you're curious about could be one of the best habits to build. Honestly, Matt, that's a habit that you helped me build when we were in Halifax, and I still do it. Yeah, I still do it to this day, multiple times a day, because of that. And I'll tell you, like I've even got my brother to start doing it, and he's even noticed like you just know more, and you stop speculating on things, and you
Yeah,
actually
man. What?
like, dude, I used to be the king of speculation, and like I remember one time I speculated on something. I was like, wait, let me look it up, and I was literally like basically opposite of what of what I
Mm,
thought, you know. So it just goes to yeah, like Google, just like yeah, just
it's Google.
be less ignorant, like
And I find this is so funny. You can notice this happening in the real world whenever you're driving with somebody. Nobody Google Maps it for some reason. I don't understand. Like, what the heck, guys? Like, fucking put it in the math, bro. Like, we don't even have to think about this.
yeah, I know, man. Yeah, that's interesting.
There was something though you said I wanted to add on to it. What was? What were you? Can you kind of?
About Google practicality.
Oh, bro, let's make it even more practical for because I can think of. I can already start thinking of the objections I can hear. Oh, I don't have time to Google it, or oh, I don't like reading. Those are like so. Okay, well, YouTube it. Literally, YouTube it. You fucking motherfucker. Like, just put it in YouTube. I learned how to copyright. Here's how I learned how to copyright. I went on YouTube, not even Google, YouTube, how to copyright. There's like 100 videos. Just watch them. Put them in the background while you're driving. Like, there's no, the objections to me are just so like, at the end of the day, either you do it or you don't, right? Like, you got to find a way. Like, there's no real reason to make, yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, yeah, that's so crazy, but and it sounds so weird, but like I literally I can confidently say I'm just as guilty of not just like searching up YouTube video, like I even like I've spent more time asking other people that probably don't know the answer than just typing it into Google. You know,
trap, man.
yeah, you know, like it's yeah, really weird how that works. Yeah, Google shit, people. I've just started doing it just so everybody knows, and it's like legit life changing, like especially like when you want to learn something. Yeah,
You
life
want to
changing.
get into the other question I bring?
Sure.
What's one part of your morning routine that you think has been making a difference?
Making a difference. I'll say the easy one, the one that's made the most impact on my day would for sure be meditation. And to be honest, I tried meditating for like a good like 8 to 12 months, and honestly, it never really stuck until I went and lived with the monks. It just kind of gave me a different perspective on meditation. It also kind of got my interest peaked into spiritual books, which further interested me in meditation and has provided me with a lot of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But meditation by far because it's something you can literally do anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're good on the inside, everything gets a lot easier on the outside. And so, yeah, just and again, going back to like Google and things seeming hard, meditate for 30 fucking seconds. Like just like literally
Mm.
just focus on your breath for like 10 breaths. Do that once a day. Like just start with like the minimum that you need because geez, I can't even believe how much happier I've been since I've started meditating. I thought I was a happy dude, and I for sure was, but I feel like I've gone to a different level of satisfaction in like the small like washing the dishes. I'm just like happy as a clown, like because like I'm not telling you just like legit just like scrubbing the little like really just focusing on scrubbing off the little pieces of food and like literally you could literally do this anywhere. Like right now, like I could do it talking to you or standing in line at Starbucks, instead of pulling out your phone, maybe just like look around and just take it in. Don't focus on anything but your breath or yeah. Yeah, meditation by far the best in my morning routine.
Could I add to? Is it being intentional? How do you find like being intentional has helped in your
With my
life,
meditation,
just like in life?
yes, yes. Intention, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Why do you bring that up?
Just because you said some people bring up their phone and go on Instagram while they're in line. I just feel like
Oh, I see.
if you're not
Yes.
intentional, what do you do? You're coasting type idea. Whereas for myself, one thing I've been employing a lot is hand-to-hand combat, $1.80 strategy on Instagram, going in the comments. And that for me has, not necessarily like people might get it twisted. Like you're saying, like some people might like hear from that, oh, you have to meditate or like you need to, it's a big game of self-awareness. Again, number one. And number two, I think intentions on what you're doing. By definition, if you don't have intentions, if you're not intentional, you don't have intentions. Living without intentions, does that sound like a good thing? I don't know. It sounds worse to me, but I
Yeah.
honestly don't know.
Yeah. In that I'm glad you brought that up. I definitely have something to add on intention. Um I think that getting off and I'll even say this, it's not even so much get off your phone and start meditating more. It's more like once you start meditating, you won't even want to go on your phone. That that's
Ooh.
that's something that I've learned. Like like
Mm-hmm.
I honest to God wouldn't go on my phone unless I absolutely and like I want to now to put out content like this. But once I started meditating, when I got back from my trip with the monks, and I actually started meditating and living in the present moment for like most of the day,
Mm-hmm.
I actually found that I literally was first of all I was never unhappy, and I never craved going on my phone. I used to have a bad relationship with food that completely disappeared. Like eating was actually became a meditation. Like tasting every bite, feeling it as I swallowed it and digested it, and it's completely like everything becomes conscious and everything becomes a meditation. And meditation is enjoyable, so everything becomes enjoyable. And there's a great quote by Eckhart Tolle. He said that happiness isn't always achievable, but no unhappiness is always achievable by accepting the present moment as it is. So it's not always about being extremely happy all the time. It's about having no unhappiness, and we can always not be unhappy,
Love that. I love that.
accepting it as it is. And we do that by accepting the present moment as it is, without judging it, labeling it, just accepting it. Like this is where I am right now.
In
Yeah,
this
that's
very moment. And then
yes.
a lot of suffering. I remember from Ed Tolle, from the book he wrote, The Power and Now. Most of the suffering, and it was so true. This, we talked about those paradigm shifts. This is another one I had.
Ah,
Reading Power Now. Basically, like all suffering you have, any sort of anxieties coming from not living in the present. You're either thinking how it's going to go wrong in the future, or how the past is like screwing you up somehow. And
yes,
like,
yes.
mm-hmm.
We're basically like living an illusion. Like the only real like reality is always the eternal present moment. Living in the past, living in the future, it's literally not real. Like it's literally not real.
Yeah,
Except
literally.
Eckhart says our minds do a great job of tricking us that the future is more important than the present, and it's just not. It's never more important.
Mm-hmm.
But he also said there is a time to plan for the future, but to be present while you're planning. If we can grasp that.
It's being practical, right? Clearly you're going to live tomorrow, but probably
Yeah.
going to live tomorrow.
Yeah, but you don't need to like, yeah. And like the moments all yeah. The only moment we ever have is the present moment. And Matt, could you bring in some Stoic philosophy to this? Because I feel like they were really great at living every day like it's their last. They had a good relationship with death.
Um, I don't know too much about Stoicism. The only one I've read Seneca on the shortness of life. Basically, like you got to realize you're gonna die. Gary says that you're gonna die. You have one life, and that can be a scary thought or a empowering thought. Reason being, if you don't, if what's the quote by Seneca? Like we're too frivolous with like our time, but we're too cheap with our personal property. We got to realize like if you don't fucking like be kind of conscious of like how you manage your time and where it goes, like you're just gonna waste it all and then die, and then like that's kind of the end.
Yeah.
Did you have any other parts of Stoic philosophy you would add?
Uh no, but I do want to bring up a quote by Seneca.
Uh-huh.
It's one of my new favorite quotes is we all have two lives and the second one begins once we realize that we only have one.
Explain
And I
that
think
quote.
so we have a huge paradigm shift, a perspective shift once we realize that we're gonna die, because
Mm-hmm.
then we are much more motivated to act at what we actually care about in the present and realize that literally nothing matters. Like we're all gonna die, so just like do what you want. Like basically what Gary Vee says. And honestly, just to continue on this tangent a little bit, that may have been my number one takeaway from living with the monks and how it helped me not care what people think. Like actually not care what people think
Mm-hmm.
was like literally like nothing matters. Like what like there's so few things that matter. The classic Albert Einstein quote, I want to know what God's thoughts are. The rest are just details. Like that's
Ooh.
all that matters. It's just like yeah, like nothing matters basically. Yeah.
Well, yeah. How can something matter? What does that even mean for something to matter?
It
Yeah.
may matter to you, but you created that meaning basically. Like you created that
Mm,
mattering. So it's all in our head basically. We create it mattering. We can create it not mattering. Yeah.
maps of meaning.
Yeah. Staring at that book right now. That's
You
one of
have it?
I do, yeah.
I'm very excited to hear what you read out of that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, me too.
How big is it?
It's 500 pages of like thickness.
Yeah,
Yeah, he went in, dude. I was like, yeah, I was pretty impressed. I was like, wow, this is a huge book.
it's like a textbook, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, yeah. It reminded me of a textbook. Yeah.
I'm gonna answer the question. What like morning routine I find helped me?
Yeah, yeah.
I honestly don't meditate, which I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I've meditated on and off. I probably should. I found like just meditating like 10 minutes a day has been pretty like good. But and so I should add that into my thing. What I was gonna say for the habit that I've had is priming myself in the morning with some good thoughts. So I
Mm.
and I noticed a very steep contrast from one day I had myself primed, the next day I didn't, and the next day I did. I was like, good. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, it was good again. And what I mean by priming myself with good thoughts, here's what I do. I go and take a shower. I'll put on, this is the very first thing I do when I wake up, take a shower, and I'll put on a little bit of Ty Lopez, 67 Steps. And just having those like kind of thoughts gets my brain going and just gets me like kind of, I'm pretty much brainwashing myself. Like, that's one thing I like keep in mind. One thing I've done in my life, I've limited my contact with other people. And I very much so, whenever I hear anybody talk, I try to take it with a grain of salt now and just brainwash myself. I just listen to Gary Vee all day and then Ty Lopez all day. And then eventually, hopefully, I just become those thoughts. You know what I mean?
Mm. Gotcha.
So, yeah, just brainwash.
Okay, cool. Um, mm, yeah, I think that like I told funny enough, I told my mom that brainwashing, and for her that was kind of like whoa, like that doesn't sound good, like to brainwash yourself. Because I was telling her that's like what I'm doing, like doing the same thing, because she continuously like tries to give me advice, and I don't want to be rude to her, right? 'Cause she's my mom, but
Mm-hmm.
like it's like taking like everyone's advice with a grain of salt, except like the few people that you want to be like that you really respect. I think that's a powerful thing, because everyone has an opinion, and our thoughts create our reality, basically. So you know try to have the thoughts of the people that you want to be like, and you'll have the same reality or a similar.
So it's a
Yeah.
good thing we're saying this near the end because one thing you should take from that is don't listen to anything me or Brett just said.
Yes, yes.
Everything we say, honestly, I wouldn't listen to me. That's straight up. Here's the
Yes.
thing. One thing we tried to do, however, I noticed when we were both saying what other people were saying.
Yes.
So there's, caveat, but I
Yes,
tried.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Honestly, I've totally changed my tune on that. Like saying what other people say, and then what I also wanted to have happen on this podcast, and in the future for my life is just to spur some inspiring emotions in people. That's what I want because at the end of the day, Naval Ravikant, I'm not sure if you know who that is, but he's a startup investor, Tim Ferriss type guy, and he said like basically like whatever we tell people like doesn't really matter because for them to actually do it, they're gonna have to take their own initiative eventually to actually dive deep enough to learn something valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
the best we can do is like hope our inspiration gets through to them that they just take the first step because that's like about all we can do. So I think that I kind of changed my thing or changed my name of the game to giving a practical action step and then the inspiration just to please just do this first easy fucking step and then hopefully that spurs something because at the end of the day like it's really up to an individual to actually do something. Yeah.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink.
Boom, bitch. Awesome. Well, I think that was a great conclusion to the podcast. Matt, thank you very much for taking the time. I know you are busy with all the other podcasts you're doing, so thank you for squeezing little old Brett into the into the mix. I appreciate
Brett,
it.
I was very happy to have you on. I'm very happy to talk to you.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank
good conversation. Well, did you just look at the conversation we had? I don't know. Personally, it was like a higher level than if there's an average conversation level. This one was like
Yeah. It
I thought
almost
so.
our podcast or sorry, our conversation's almost better once it's in podcast format because it's like more structured, you know? Yeah, that's kind of cool. Um, yeah, no, I think this was I really enjoyed my time as well. I have a lot of notes written down from you, so thank you for giving me the juice. Keystone habits, learn mental models, Google stuff, figure out why you do what you do, what's compelling you. Yeah, try and be more aware. Those are like my main takeaways.
Do you want to end it? And I just want to chat for like 5 minutes after too.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I guess you have to. I was going to ask you about content for your own brand.